Hey everyone, I'm Eric Thomas of Eric Thomas Studios, and today I'll be talking about artboards. So before we get into them, what are artboards? Artboards are, basically, their own file inside of your design file. Photoshop, Illustrator, XD, and a number of art and painting programs have them. When you're designing something in Photoshop, you're working in a canvas, which is where all the stuff you're making goes. Artboards are a way to have more than one of those canvases in a single file. They're useful for a surprising number of things, actually. For one example, you can use them to plan out a storyboard for an animation, or a video you're working on, or you can even use them to make thumbnails for an illustration. Most commonly though, you'll see these a lot if you're doing web or app design. Here they let you design all the pages of a site or screens of an app you're working on without having to make a ton of folders and layers and switch, which used to be a bit of a pain. But how do you use them? I'll start with Photoshop's controls. First, we'll need an artboard file. To make a normal file into an artboard file, first we switch to the Artboard tool. This can be used by clicking and holding on the Move tool, and when the menu for more options opens up, we'll go to the artboard. Or you can type V and then Shift V to switch from the Move to the Artboard tool. With it active, we just click anywhere in the canvas and drag. The layout will change, and you'll now have a white square at whatever size you dragged, and 4 plus signs around it. We can now use our artboards. Though to start with, it might not be the size of anything we'd actually want to use if we just randomly dragged, but luckily we can fix this pretty fast. Up near the top of Photoshop, in our contextual bar, there will be a drop-down menu with the word Custom. If we click on this, we'll have a whole list of preset sizes for the board. These can be for mobile, tablet, or desktop, with a few different sizes in each of these for different devices. If we click on one, the board will change to be that size. Alternatively, we can use the two numbers to the right of that drop-down to manually change the height and width of the board, as long as it's selected. If you're looking to do comps, thumbnails, or storyboards, this might be useful since you wouldn't necessarily be looking to fit on a device. To the right of that, we can also use the next two buttons to switch it between portrait or landscape. Both of these will swap the height and width, with portrait meaning the artboard is taller than it is wide, and landscape meaning that it'll be wider than it is tall. Now currently we just have one artboard, which kind of defeats the point. So, to add more, we can first toggle the button to the right of the portrait and landscape. With this on, we can add new artboards by then clicking anywhere in the gray area of the file. We might then need to move that artboard by clicking on the name at the top and dragging it around. If we're working with a lot of artboards though, that might be a hassle. Luckily, we can take care of it faster. First, we'll need to select all the artboards we want to line up. To do that, just hold down Shift and click on the name of all the artboards you want to align. The names will become slightly bolder, and in the Layers panel, they will be highlighted. Then we have the other button at the top menu, which has two bars sticking out. This lets us easily align multiple artboards using the horizontal and vertical edges of the boards. You also might have noticed, when you have only one board selected, that a plus sign will show up on each side. If you click on any of them, it'll also add a new artboard already sized to the same as the board you have selected and aligned to the previous one, spaced out evenly for you. And while we still have the artboard itself selected, we can also hold down Option or Alt and click and drag on the artboard's name, which will also duplicate the artboard, so all the content in it will be copied right into the new board you're making. Speaking of content, that actually leads to the other part of artboards, at least in Photoshop. To get more control over what's actually on your boards, we'll need to use the Layers panel. An artboard will act a lot like a group here, where the layers you make will be inside said group. Specifically, they're like a masked group, since content will only be visible inside the boundaries of a board and will vanish outside of it. It's a bit different here though, because normally you can drag layers and groups from one group to another and it won't be changed at all. With artboards though, it's all relative, which means if you click and drag a layer from one board to another, the layer will be moved and it'll look exactly the same on another board. In the same way, if you hold down Option or Alt before you drag a layer, it'll also be an exact copy on a different layer. And if you're doing UI design, this is awesome. You can, for one example, make a header design and copy it to all your other artboards. This will make that header exactly the same on all the pages. Even better though, this can be done in a way that's almost exactly like CSS. If you take those header layers and make them into a smart object, and then copy that smart object to your different artboards instead, you can then change the content of that smart object, and when you save, just like with CSS, it will change on all of your pages at once. And last, for the Layers panel, it should be mentioned that, like anything else in the Layers panel, you can rename your artboards. Just double click on the artboard and whatever number, and type the new name. This will make it much easier to manage your boards and what goes where. Now, switching over to Illustrator will have mostly the same things. For the most part, it looks and works the exact same, though Illustrator does have a few more controls and options since they've been in there longer than any of the other Adobe programs. To control the boards here, we can go right to the Artboard tool down near the bottom of our tools palette with the same icon as Photoshop has. Or we can just type Shift-O. To avoid making this a 20-minute video, I'll avoid repeating the things that are the same here. The first difference is that Illustrator doesn't have a layers panel that's quite the same as Photoshop. So instead of using the layers to rename your artboards, we actually have a place right up in our context bar to enter the names we want. When we enter a new one, the name will change up at the top left of the board in that gray box. Also, unlike Photoshop, we can actually choose if we want the content and boards to be separate, so you can move the boards without changing the content. To do that, we just toggle the button to the right of our name, which says Move/Copy Artwork with Artboard. With it on, whenever we duplicate a board, all of the sublayers that are on that board will also be copied to the new one. If you don't want that happening, just toggle it off. We can also get some markers on our boards in Illustrator to better guide us as we work. The first of these is the next button to the right of the last one, which will toggle the center mark. Just like it sounds, this is a small mark that shows up in the exact middle of your artboard. Next to that, we have another button that will give us some crosshairs. These are lines that reach inward from the middle points of each side of the board. And if you're designing for video, we also have the last of this set of buttons. This, when turned on, gives us guides for the video safe area, which is a pair of boxes around the artboard that act as a kind of safeguard. Basically, use this and try keeping any text or important graphics inside the middle two boxes. And lastly, Illustrator has a whole window for more controls called the Artboard Options, which is the next icon. We have our name, presets, sizes, and guide options here. But what we also have is the option to fade region outside artboard. With this turned on, the background of your canvas will be faded so you're not seeing a giant wall of white. It lets your artboards stand out much more so that you can easily spot them. I should also mention, before I finish this up, that these will work the same in XD, but I'm actually planning not one but 2 whole videos on XD in the very near future, so this is where I'll leave it now. And that was all about artboards. I hope you've learned something and had fun doing it. If you have any feedback, you can let me know with a comment below or with a message to @ET_studios on Twitter, where I have DMs open. You can also like this video and share it around. I'd appreciate the help getting the word out. And I'm planning to be back here every Friday, so if you like this, be sure to subscribe for more awesome content. Have a great day, everyone.